Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hearing News. Kia ora, Chewy. How are you, sir?
Kia ora, Pat. It's hot. I'm not built for this. That's why I live in Dunedin.
No, it is pretty hot. I'm enjoying it, though. It's a good one today. You know, it's the day where you can lose 2 kilos whilst doing nothing at the gym whatsoever. It's great.
One I guess PSA to people is on a lovely hot sunny day like it is today, if you ever go into a shop and you see someone there ready and waiting to serve you, to look after you, do not say to them, wow, it's a lovely day out there. I bet you wish you were outside. It gets tiresome real quick.
Yeah.
Yes I would.
Good to know. I'll stop doing that every time I come and see you from now on.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, cool.
I'm glad you picked that up.
Yeah, subtle. I like your subtlety. Now, tonight, obviously, massive show, guys. Hey, Chewy, we haven't even talked about this yet, so you can decide right now. Are we here tomorrow night to do our first public holiday?
Oh. Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Obviously, that's the Waitangi Day holiday is tomorrow, but the event itself has happened today, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, unless we can expect more news.
All right, let's talk about it after the show. And guys, follow us on Twitter, and you'll find out what we're doing tomorrow night or not. Yeah, because you're right. All the news is probably happening today. So tonight's going to be huge, though. Often, come on, girl, get inside on your mat. Sorry, she's just trying to squeeze through the door, which is quite not open enough for her. You can make it. Go on, good girl. In you go. No, go on your mat. Lay down. Hi. There's lots going on tonight, so we got to give everything the time it needs, but also moving quite quickly between things because there is a lot to get to today. There might be some stuff we drop. I don't know if anyone saw my tweet out earlier about I've had a bunch of people threatening to dox me over the weekend because of something you said, Chewy, actually, a bastard. So we might get to that. If we don't, though, that can wait because that's not important at all compared to the news of the day. Do want to say before we start, though, a huge thanks to our patrons, patreon.com/Big Hearing News. Andrew Winnington has moved himself off the producer page to become an executive producer. So there is our front page of our patrons at the moment. If you want to be a part of it, Big Hearing News. Patreon.com/Big Hearing News. And of course, all our lovely patrons on there. Really does appreciate what you do. It does help out a lot, genuinely helps out a lot. And it enables us to keep on doing this as we're doing. In fact, probably later on in the week, not to belabor the point right now, but later on in the week, I might even give you a bit of an update on finances and where we are and what we're doing and what we're looking at for you, BHN whānau. Right, so yes, well, a lot to talk about, obviously. Massive amounts of stuff online today, huge goings on up in Waitangi, a different Waitangi Day like ever before, and we are going to get to all of that. We're going to start that, though, by speaking to Dr. Grant Duncan. Grant is a good mate of the show. Grant's been with us several times before, and Grant has a Substack that he writes to called Politics Happening, and wrote a piece that was released this morning, Luxon and Co. Under Attack, but Labour's got competition. Some interesting questions in here, Grant, about the treaty, and about what's happening between ACT and Te Pāti Māori. So we do want to bring it to that before we conclude the conversation, I mean. But what I want to do to start with, and welcome to the show, what I want to do to start with is actually address a point you make at the start of that, which is talking about, I think it was Chris Trotter writing, saying there needs to be a new Helen Clark. And the idea of being a new Helen Clark or a new decent leader, I don't know if I can put it that way, right at the time where Chloe Swarbrick has taken over in the Greens, or is going to take over in the Greens, and Debbie Nato-Apaka is absolutely firing on all cylinders. And it had me kind of think, well, what is the next round of leadership going to be? What's it going to look like? What do we need in politics to have this be a more functional political system, especially if you're looking at it from the left? So welcome. And there's the first starting point.
It's a big question, because I guess my point really is that, you can have great policies, and I think, Labour is taking a step back, as I understand it, as an outsider, to reconsider its policies and appointments to its policy council and all that kind of thing. That's great. Give them a bit of time to reconsider those things. And I don't think they should be in any hurry to change leaders if that's going to happen between now and the next election. I'm not saying they ought to do that. It's not for me to say what a political party ought to do. I just don't see that as my role. However, I keep repeating in my column, leadership does matter. It makes a difference. But the way it makes a difference depends on the personality and the timing. And so, obviously we can think of Helen Clark. And now she did an amazing job. She picked up the leadership of Labour at its lowest.
Yeah.
She led through 1996, let that one go, essentially, and then rode on to 1999, subsequently 9 years of her leadership. Now, that's actually a pretty amazing record, really, for any political party, National or Labour. Pretty amazing record. And so, the leadership does matter. It makes a difference. Now, I wouldn't say that Helen was the most inspiring celebrity type figure or anything like that, but she achieved stuff. Under her government, she and her team achieved a lot. I mentioned KiwiSaver in the column, but working for families, the whole tertiary education strategy, a whole lot of
student loans. That was a big one from them.
Yep, that's a big one. That probably some people say was what clinched them the 2005 election. She had her down times, particularly, of course, controversy, thinking about the present moment, controversy over the foreshore and seabed, probably her lowest point, I think, in her prime ministership. But she battled on through and ended up with nine years in office. Now, my point really is that leadership matters, and it doesn't necessarily mean you've got to be cover of Vogue material, does it? I'm not saying it's a bad thing, by the way, but it doesn't have to be that kind of leadership. There's different styles. So John Key, equally close to 9 years, shall we say 8 years, and quit while he was ahead of the cunning dog. But so it does make a difference. So Labour needs to think through that issue carefully, but it's a little bit sensitive, isn't it, when you've got an existing leader who appears to be hanging on. Chris Trotter's opinion clearly is that he should embrace defeat and go. Now, as I say, it's not for me to say what the Labour Party should do, but nonetheless, my point is, hey guys, leadership matters. Doesn't matter what party you are.
Yeah. It's funny when you say it's not your place to say. I'm like with Chewy, I'm like, we'll say. It might not be our place either, but we'll say it. I think that for me, that Chris Hipkins is not going to win the next election. He's not the guy for the job. My question is, who is, and at what point in the cycle is most advantageous for them to move to that person? Here at the show, I think it'd be fair to say, Chewy, correct me if I'm wrong, we think Kieran McIntyre would be a pretty amazing one. Is it a bit soon for him? Don't know. Like a year out from the election, 18 months out, how much runway do you need to peak at the right time before you do a Don Brash after his Odio speech and peak and then just come down and lose? So that's what I'd be interested in. I'd be interested in who is the person and when is the best time to change over? Because if there's no one, then it's Hipkins kind of by default. What do you think, Chewy?
My first, and I admit, knee-jerk reaction is to go in the opposite direction from what Chris Trotter says. I would agree. Like I like Chippy, I really do, but I think where he is at the moment is he has to shake off a loss, an absolute trouncing, and almost remarket himself, and that's challenging. Like there's a real personality there, and I think we lost it in the run up to the election, right up until about 2 weeks out.
Yeah, 2 weeks out we saw it.
Fire in his belly. Like we need to see that all the time. And when it comes to Kieran, again, really, really like him. Like he personally would be a big tick for me. But I think almost it's the opposite. Is he kind of needs a little bit of polish. And maybe it's a case of yeah, those two need to put their heads together and go, what's the best way forward for the party? And I think that's kind of one of my criticisms. Talk about Helen Clark is she cemented her leadership in a way that overall was damaging to the Labour Party, in my opinion. Anybody that would have been a threat to her got moved down away. So when Helen left, it was an oh shit, who have we got moment. And that's where Labour was left. And to go from Helen Clark's, as I remember it, very authoritative leadership to John Key's leadership by opinion poll, that's why he's so well regarded. And I think when you compare those two people to Christopher Luxon, he's neither. He's a void compared to any of the people that I've just rattled off. He's like the absence of a leader, the LaCroix of prime ministership. So they're just some quick off the cuff thoughts I just had just now.
What do you reckon, Grant?
Well, Jacinda had a 7-week run in, didn't she? So you just never know how these things might work out. But yeah, I guess the wisdom surely is that there's no rush at this point in time for Labor to make a choice, but they've really got to make that choice. In other words, even if they decide to stay with Chippy for the next election, they've got to make that a choice, not just because, it's all a little bit awkward, we don't want to talk about it kind of thing, and we can't think of anyone else. I think Kieran sounds like a definitely a possible contender there. But I don't. I mean, you've got to ask yourself this question about Hipkins. Okay, Helen Clark suffered a loss, so to speak, or an election that she had to flag, and then went on to victory. Does Hipkins have that in him? Because he suffered from that standard historical thing where if you're if you get the prime ministership midway, you're going to lose the next election. Holyoake was the interesting guy who that happened to him, but then he hung on and won for National in 1960. So, he inherited a prime ministership midterm, lost it in 57, got it back in 1960. So, and then went on to an incredible career, Kiwi Keith, etc. That kind of consensus politics in the 1960s. Okay, I know he's national and all the rest of it, but was national. But what I'm getting at is, just in general terms, there's nothing to say in historical precedent that Hipkins couldn't pull it off. But the point is, I can't see him quite doing that at the moment. He's not getting the exposure, the relevance, the hits, etc. So it's early days. I mean, I wouldn't write him off yet.
So I wonder, along with those lines, like Helen Clark lost in 96, I wonder if, so let's say that it stays with Hipkins, that the loss he just suffered, would that serve him better next time around, thinking that a one-term government is pretty unlikely, historically speaking, or would it be better to bring in, whoever the next person is, thinking they'll probably lose the next one, but then that'll be their Helen Clark 1996 to go on to the next one. I mean, if Chippy comes up again, they lose again, then he's done, and then you've got a new leader in there with no leadership whatsoever. The flip side of that, I guess, is could bringing someone in, let's just say Kieran, for argument's sake, and then him lose that one, will that taint him, or would it be better for someone else to lose it and then he pick up in the new cycle? So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, look, if it were me, I've got to admit, I'd be sitting there thinking, I'll let him lose the next election and then I'll come in.
Right.
And that's what I reckon Jacinda would have been thinking, but then the choice was forced on her.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, she did it. She pulled it off. But if in her position, conventional wisdom would have been saying, no, just let Andrew lose and then I'll take it.
Let's jump through to the next part of the conversation, which of course again is from your Substack, and I've highlighted a little piece here out of it. Subscribe to Politics Happens by Grant Duncan, launched a year ago. Happy birthday, 1 year old. And it says this is a part of the paragraph, talking about ACT and Te Pāti Māori and what they want in the treaty and how they're interpreting the treaty. And they're both interpreting it differently, but maybe they want similar things to do with who runs what. And you say this: I don't believe that ACT want to erase the treaty. They're trying to interpret it in a manner that's consistent with their principles of formal equality and property rights. There are substantial differences between the two parties' interpretations, other party being Te Pāti Māori, but it would be in the interests of the whole country if they'd search for some common ground. I want to just put up a tweet I put out today, and you guys can tell me how wrong it is if you like, because I actually also agree that I don't think, because people are saying this thing, they're going like, no one's talking about rewriting the treaty. There's no policy about rewriting the treaty. That is true. However, this is what I put up today, and I'd be happy for you guys to respond to this. People who keep saying that there's no intention or policy to rewrite the treaty either aren't getting it or are disingenuous. Imagine a policy comes along to take everyone's car keys, and people start to say they're banning us from driving. And the response is, there's no policy to ban driving, but the actions of the other policy make driving impossible. This is what I think. The actions and intent of the treaty referendum is to redefine how the treaty is read. And through that redefinition, that will be how the treaty is enacted and what comes from the treaty, which is kind of akin to rewriting it without rewriting it. No, this word means that. We're not going to rewrite the word, we're going to redefine the word. And I just had that thought today. It's a bit like, so I'll take Chewy's keys off him and he can't drive his car. I haven't stopped you driving your car, but you've got my keys. Yeah, but you go, drive your car. That's how it kind of feels to me.
Fair enough, Pat. That's okay. I just think that both TPM and ACT are trying to rewrite the treaty. And that was the point of my column, is that TPM has done quite a lot of creative rewriting in there. For instance, I point out the way that the word governance migrates from Article 1 to Article 2. And they translate kāwanatanga as custodianship, not government. Now, there's quite a lot of rewriting going on right there, right? Now, what I'm saying is it's fine to rewrite it or to interpret it. That's what we're doing. We're all doing that. That's what the Court of Appeal did in 1986. That's where the concept of partnership comes from. It's a living document. We're rewriting it, reinterpreting it, if you like. The actual treaty in its two languages can't be literally rewritten. That's, I think the texts are pretty established. But the point is that one way or another, we're reinterpreting it as we go. And what is wrong with that? It's a living document. We are making up our minds as we go as to how to interpret and use this document. That is changing historically. It's changed quite dramatically in my lifetime, our understanding of it. And of course it's controversial. There's no single understanding of it. That's the thing. It's just a very controversial question. But it goes to the heart of our nationhood. And I think it stings and it hurts a lot when people get angry about the question.
I wonder.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, you see David Seymour couching his rhetoric and like, this is a conversation that needs to happen, and it's like, I'm down for a conversation about the role of Te Tiriti in modern New Zealand. That's not the problem. My problem is what you're planning to do with that discussion, and the fact that, like, turning around and saying everybody has a say in this when there is just an absence of people's knowledge around the treaty. I'm learning about this now in the last 10 years. You can't sort of go out to the population and go, cool, so everybody's on the same even keel. We're discussing it now. It just, there isn't the grounding.
Well, the discussion's been going on for a long time anyway, and the debate will carry on. I guess what you're mentioning, though, is should there be a referendum on the issue? Now, at the moment, we don't know what, if there were to be a referendum, we don't know what it is that we would be asked to approve, because there's nothing in writing yet.
Yeah.
There'd still be a parliamentary process. And Seymour himself, somewhere I remember reading, has said that, just like with the end of choice bill, of course there'd be changes from his original draft, and we don't know if there were a full parliamentary process through to an act of parliament. We don't know what the final result would be. And here's part of the problem, you see. If the parties of the left, including TPM, the Greens, Labour, and so forth, had taken this initiative some time ago and done it themselves and said, we'll put forward a bill on the principles of the treaty to clarify the matter, because it is unclear what the principles of the treaty are, to give statutory clarity to courts, to lawyers, to bureaucrats, etc. This is what a parliament believes it means. If they had taken that initiative, they wouldn't be in this situation now, because the initiative has been taken away from them by the ACT Party. That's what they're pissed off about.
I think that also, it feels to me like we're still not even at a place at, and I don't mean to sound like a moron, but which treaty? Like, we were talking to Professor Margaret Mutu last week, and I asked her a stupid, dumb person question. I'm like, which treaty did Māori sign? And she was like, well, Te Tiriti, they signed the Māori version of the treaty. So straight away, as someone who always kind of thinks of the treaty as a contract, an agreement between two parties, I'm like, well, why are we even talking about the English version then? That's not the version that was even signed. That was a document for the English speakers to understand it. And I actually really think until we go, okay, yes, the English version, the treaty, has its place, and it was signed by about 30 chiefs out of approximately 600, but we understand that it was signed by those 30 chiefs because they didn't have the Māori one there, and they were told it was exactly the same as the Māori one, which it kind of wasn't. But until we even go there, until we actually go, okay, officially, right now, like the UN says, like if I was to have if I was to make a contract with a Fijian company and there was to be a copy in Fijian and a copy written in English, I would want to adhere to the English one because I don't speak Fijian. It makes sense that Māori would adhere to the one written in Māori, that we actually go, this one. Now, from that point, all the other conversations can happen. So I don't even think we can get there yet myself.
Well, but here's the thing, you see, that the ACT parties, and I'm not speaking for the ACT party's policy, right? I'm not defending it. But their policy, they claim, is based on the Reo Māori version. And you read their policy and it's very clear. Now, I don't entirely agree with their interpretation.
Yeah.
No one has to. I don't think that Seymour is expecting that people will agree with it entirely. It's just a draft that goes to the Parliament to be and to the Select Committee to be haggled over and potentially changed. Now, but my point is that they have begun from what they claim to be their interpretation of the Reo Māori version. And it's very clear in their policy that's what they're doing.
The point that Willie Jackson's been making for 6 months, and people will love or hate him, is that they've got no one in kind of the history of sort of the judicial system, academia, Treaty of Waitangi, that agrees with their interpretation of it. I mean, the most obvious one is the agreement between the Crown and iwi, and he's changing it to they're changing it to between the Crown and all New Zealanders. That's a pretty massive difference. In other words, everyone has now got the same standing as the original people who were here.
Exactly. That's what upsets people, is that particularly in Article 2, they've put all New Zealanders in there, and that does seem to fail to recognise.
And it's a slap in the face. It's a slap in the face to people who signed the treaty, in my opinion.
Look, I'm not going to comment on it that way. But my point is simply to say that their version of Article 2 doesn't appear to recognise distinctive Indigenous rights. Yeah, put it that way.
Hey, let's remind people of how to find you. Politics Happens. It's Grant Duncan PhD.substack.com. I got that right. My eyes are bad, and I'm looking from the other side of the room. Politics Happens, and there's the article we were just talking about, a bunch of other stuff as well. It's currently not paywalled, but if I was you, I'd get there quickly, because who knows in this day and age when it might be becoming paywalled, eh, Grant?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have an income at the moment, so...
Just do what Mr. Luxon does and just say, I watched the space 4 times, and then we can leave it at that. Watch the space. Yeah. Watch the space. Hey, Grant, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys. It's been great talking with you.
All the best.
Okay.
Let's get to some of these chats and stuff, shall we, Chewy? Thank you for the super chats that have come in. Obviously, we're moving quite quickly tonight, so we didn't have time to put all of them up there. JC was 3 minutes late, so that's $1 a minute, so a $3 super chat seems about right. I don't know, seems fair to me. Now, Spides is going to feature in our show tonight, because Spider Hoof, I don't know if you noticed this, Chewy, but I watched both TVNZ and TV3 reports on what happened at Waitangi today. I actually think the TV3 report was probably better, but it's a lot longer than the TVNZ one. So we're going to play the TVNZ one. And the TVNZ one at one stage says, Mr. Luxon, yada, 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 working on his speech today. I went, his speech today. His speech today. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll find out very, very shortly. Labour and the Greens should form a new party, says Spides, with Queen Chloe as leader and Hipkins as deputy, with Te Pāti Māori as coalition partners. That would basically be the Democratic Party of America, because that's what they are. They've got the centrist Democrats and the progressives.
With, in my opinion, the same problems. It's too broad a church.
Yeah.
And I think, I always think this when people talk about like a grand coalition or two parties joining together as one bigger party. In MMP, they're better served by negotiating their positions with support parties. I think that's the strength of our system.
I mean, I think you could also see that basically Labour and the Greens are sort of one party. They're not one party. They have their own identities and their own, but they're always going to work together. They're always going, if we haven't even talked about Chloe yet, but congratulations on the throwing your hat in the ring. I think it happened on Friday. We weren't here. And I'm pretty sure what she said at her speech to say she's throwing her head in the wind is she wants to be the dominant party on the left. Now, what I'm unclear about is, are we now considering Labour to be a centrist party? And that means there's only really two on the left, or is she meaning she wants to be bigger than Labour? I think someone has to ask her. I'd like to ask her that question, but that's congratulations to her for throwing that in. JC for $20 super chat. Thank you. Appreciate that. Discussion is fine, but putting it to a referendum with a binary question while gaslighting a largely misinformed and undereducated population into thinking it's about equality support acts interpretation is despicable. I had someone on my Twitter feed today called me Orwellian because apparently I'm now against David Seymour, who just wants equality for all. To which, of course, I had to then go and explain it's not about equality for all, because he only wants to, what he thinks is flatten or level the playing game in the human rights area when it comes to race. I've done this a million times on the show, so I won't belabor this point either. He's happy for churches to have special privileges, or the disabled, or religion, I said churches, or age, 65 and get a pension. He's happy not to level all those playing fields and make us all equal. So he's not looking for equality for all. He's looking for equality, that everyone gets treated the same when it comes to race. That's it. All the other protected classes, you can still have your privileges. You can still discriminate. I of course bring up the one that I always bring up. I've never heard Luxon talking about those rural seats in med school that are put aside for rural community applications. No one ever talks about that. It's just the Māori who get into the med school. Yep. The rural kids who have another line of entry, they have seats set aside for them. Never talk about them. Sorry, Stu, I'm talking too much.
And the standard that Seymour will always use is the European standard.
Yeah.
This is why I say, when you're talking about European supremacy or white supremacy, that's the thing. They need to come up to our level. They need to leave their culture behind and take ours. They need to act within the system that has been built under European rules and traditions. Even his use of the words, what is it, rights and duties, that's where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And so he might take umbrage when someone says he's a white supremacist. We're not necessarily calling him a Nazi. It's just that the system that he promotes and the system that everybody has to act within and the dominant culture is European New Zealand.
I think it's the idea of I know this is going to sound a little bit naive, but can someone say something racist but not be a racist? I told the story about a very elderly person who used to be say some quite horrific things about Japanese people because her husband was in a Japanese prisoner of war camp. She also had great relations with the Japanese people she knew. Now, so can you have a system set in place that benefits Caucasian people over everybody else? If someone wants to adhere to that, does that make them a white supremacist, or are they just getting the advantages working under a system that's built on white superiority? European-centric system, like Chewy's been saying. And I think that's true. I think you can be getting the benefits from something, inadvertently perhaps, without actively being that thing. I don't know. There are probably people who will disagree with that. There's probably a 4-year degree in that question that I've just asked about being educated on that. But I think we can all, you can get angry in the car, but do you suffer road rage? Might be a bit of a flippant idea. It's like, I don't know.
I think it is possible. And in the greater discussion about racism, even the most well-meaning people I don't think anybody is free of racism.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's got their bad reactions, their poorly considered thoughts, and that sort of thing. And for the most part, I think it comes from ignorance. And this is my big fear with the discussion around the treaty. Like I've said before, I'm in my early 40s and went pretty much my entire schooling without talking about New Zealand history at all. And then we're going to throw that out to the voting public and going, based on almost no knowledge at all, your gut feeling, the memes you look at Facebook, your parents' inconsidered positions that they drummed into you when you're a kid, we're now going to decide how much say Māori get in the country that they're from. Yeah. That's terrifying to me. And if there was any discussion of a referendum, like that's when people are in the streets, that sort of thing. And I think the other thing, that the reason that people have instantly got their back up is the alternative to something like that is the potential for a death by 1,000 cuts. We're just going to nibble away at the foundations of the treaty, how people regard the treaty. We're just going to change some of the words. Just chill out. You know, we're not getting rid of the treaty. Yeah. We're just changing how it's interpreted. So don't, you know, and this is why, you know, I've said a couple of times, it's like, they're not rewriting the treaty. They're rewriting how it's interpreted, which is weaselly and deceptive and not as in your face, but it's still a threat.
Let me tell a story. I know I go on about this, I tell stories. I don't know if it's good or bad, but to give people who are watching an idea of what it means when you have a privilege that you're not entitled to. So I remember having a debate between Julianne Genter and a property investor called Darcy, who used to do this show called Elephant TV, which may come back this year, where we debate issues. And I said this thing while I was hosting it, and I said, look, I'm lucky enough to own a house. And the property investor, Darcy, went, no, Pat, you're not lucky enough. You worked hard. You worked hard and did it. And I was like, well, let me put it this way. The first house that my then wife and I bought was thanks to a $35,000 loan from my father, who had the ability to do it because of his 30 or 40 years of work. I had no rights to be in that family. I didn't plan to be in that family. I hadn't gone out and done work to be in that family. There was literally nothing I'd done to give me a father who had the ability to borrow $35K from the bank, lend it to me to buy a house. That's a privilege that I didn't earn and don't deserve. Right? Now, what happened then is we actually bought a little property in Glen Eden in West Auckland. It appreciated $100,000 in 12 months. We then used the equity and we bought a second house. And then we lived in that house. So, yes, I'm lucky I bought a house. I might have worked hard to keep the house, which is where I will meet you in the middle ground. Like, I've worked hard to keep it, but I did nothing. I don't know if I still wouldn't have a house or whatever if I hadn't had the absolute good fortune, good luck, through nothing of my own to be in the family that I happened to be born into to be able to get that first $35,000 loan. And that's how these things, like if you're living in a community and you are European, you're white, you may not even be aware of the things that benefit you because you're just living in it. It's just who you are. I was just living in that family. I was just a part of it. I was just born into it. But because of that, I had that privilege, and that I didn't deserve and I hadn't earned, but I got it. That's how I think about privilege and how I think about things that we can be a part of without even doing anything or being aware that we're a part of it, if that makes sense.
I mean, I've got a story along those lines with my brush with the justice system. You know, the diversion system. You know, if you're caught on a non-violent crime and it's your first offence, you can get off with some community services. It doesn't affect your criminal history. You're only supposed to have it once. I've had it twice.
Right.
Now, stats show that if my complexion was more beige, there is no chance that I would have got that second chance. In fact, there's a good chance that I wouldn't have been offered it the first time.
Yeah.
And now I'm in the justice system. Now it's on my record. Now I'm going to court. Now it's affecting my job. Yeah. All of that sort of thing. You know, and at the time when it happened, I was just like, this is hilarious. I'm so lucky. And it's only in later life that I was able to reflect and look at going, well, I should be a crime statistic, but I'm not.
Yeah, maybe that ginge helped me out in some areas. Might have hurt me in lots, but maybe in that particular moment they went, good Celtic lad. He's just been a bit rough with the boys, no big deal.
I got lippy with a cop and could have had a dog set on me, and maybe if I had different skin color, maybe that dog would be set on me. It's those questions that you've got to look back and go, yeah, look, through no fault of your own, you have potentially benefited for something. And the people get their back up when we talk about like white privilege or male privilege or that sort of thing. No one's saying that you set the system up to take advantage of it, just that you're the beneficiary of it.
Yeah.
And it's not a personal attack. It's just you've got to sit there and go, oh shit, that's shitty how the world works. Maybe we should fucking fix that.
To parallel that exactly to my example, no one set it up. No, I didn't attempt to be a part of the family that I was in. It just happened to go that way, and I happened to get the benefit. And that's how it is. Thank you, Peter. Doubt Seymour understands EULAS, let alone TTT. EULAS. Thanks for the
we all read the EULAs. We all read them before we tick the box. We all know.
And Cookie's late again, $5. Thank you for the super.
He's ruined his streak of being on time once.
Okay, let's move. I mean, we're talking about it. It's a big part of the conversation. There's a lot of people in the chat tonight and who are watching live. So let's get to it. TVNZ story about the treaty. This story is actually in two parts. We'll play both parts. The first part is about basically the highlights of the day, what was happening in Waitangi today.
The moment Māori have been waiting for. Face to face with the government.
Pat, we've got doubled audio on that clip.
Is there double audio?
The first challenge was laid down to the man in charge of it all, the Prime Minister.
You can hear it?
Yep, that's better.
I can't hear it.
Next came one of their own, as feelings of betrayal were laid bare.
I'm not sure what's going on.
They saved the best for last.
Could you hear that then the second time? Because I just turned my fader down.
So when that clip started, there was like a half-second delay.
Right.
Like the narrator was repeating.
Can you hear anything now?
No.
If I push play now, I'll push it again. Sorry, guys. This is very amateur of us. Well, where do you think you are? Because once I took the fader down and you said, yep, that's better, I couldn't hear anything. Let me just play this again.
The moment Māori have been waiting
double.
for.
Yeah.
Face to face with the government, National, New Zealand
still
First and ACT.
That's better.
The first
I can't hear
challenge
it,
was
so you're in
laid down
charge,
to the man in
the
charge
chat,
of
can
it
you hear
all,
that?
the Prime Minister. Next came one of their own, as feelings of betrayal were laid bare. They saved the best for last, the architect of
You
the
just tell me
Treaty
if you want to stop,
Principles
Terry, 'cause I
Bill,
can't hear it again.
slowly dragging it out, leaving nothing to the imagination. Listing off iwi from across the country signalled the size of the anger.
Do we want to talk about that greeting there, Pat?
Yeah, welcome to. I can't hear it at all. I don't know what it was. I've watched it. I know it, but you'll just have to tell me when to stop. So I've stopped it. What's up? What are we talking about?
Okay. Just wanted to talk there. Just something a couple of people have noticed, and I thought it was very funny. Winston, Luxon, a couple of the other dignitaries there greeted for the challenge by one person, whereas David Seymour had to face about 15. And got basically a couple of other signals of deep disrespect towards him, which I think is very telling where the blame on where things are is being pinned on David.
There was a thing going around today. I'm just having a look at my settings here again. No, I don't know why it's doubling up, but it's all right. We can get going. There was an image going around on Twitter today that had a picture of Luxon bending down to pick up the gift, and he had one foot at the back, one foot at the front, and he was bending at the knee to pick it up. And then the caption was, "One of these things is not like the other," and it had a picture of David Seymour 2 feet together, bent down backwards to pick it up, like it was crouching, looked like he was having a poo. And I think the point was someone was saying he was probably shitting himself slightly. So do you want me to keep going?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. Remember, you need to tell us when to stop and stuff. I've got it booked in for about another 90 seconds. You tell me if you want to pause, because I can't hear it. Just make sure you can.
Say it time and time and time again in every forum that we can, so it catches your conscious and your unconscious to protect he whakaputanga e te tiriti o Waitangi.
Shane Jones warned not to capitalise on the debate.
Ko te tiriti o Waitangi, he hala ko te tiriti o Pōneke.
Tama Pōtaka addressed the name-calling.
Te kanohi o te raiona, te kanohi o te wuruhi, te kanohi o punga were were. Āna, he manawa piharau tōku.
Then it was over to ACT MP Nicole McKee. The crowd hated it. They sang her down.
Now, some wanted to drown me out, and I think that more had to do not with what I was saying, but rather the fact that I was even speaking.
I salute her bravery, I salute her courage, but courage alone is not going to save you in this ground.
Then it was all on. Winston Peters completely unleashing.
So stop the crap, stop the nonsense, stop the hysteria. Some of us were out there before you were born fighting for Maori land rights.
Despite being sung over, David Seymour held his nerve.
You can sing and you can sing, and yet you're not going to beat an idea by singing any.
While Hone Harawira was back.
You and your shitty ass bill are going down the toilet.
The Prime Minister finishing it off.
We will keep talking, sometimes boisterously, always sincerely, I hope respectfully, and I believe ultimately productively. And alongside the korero and te reo Māori and or English, we need action.
Plenty more kōrero to come.
There we go. Now, I couldn't hear any of that in my ears, but I think I know what I've done. So whilst we're talking about what you've just heard, and I have watched it obviously to set it up, you can begin the conversation with what we've just seen.
Yeah, like Waitangi has always been known for being boisterous. If people don't like what you're saying, they're going to tell you. And often that's framed, and I'm sure we'll see it in coming days, as a lack of respect. Like, this is not an unknown thing. It's not unknown in a discussion on a marae that people aren't just going to sit there and patiently wait their turn. They're going to tell you live what they think. And I think that ACT MP, sorry, I've completely blanked on her name.
Is it McKee?
Yeah, basically kind of trying to draw a line between the fact that they wanted, she shouldn't be speaking at all. No, I think people were reflecting what they thought about the party that she represents. Like, that's what that was about. It's not because I don't think it was personal when it came to her. She hasn't done enough to be directed at to be personally directed. But she's there as a representative of ACT and as someone that whakapapa's Māori. So yeah, they're gonna tell her.
There was one part about the TV3, and I think I fixed the sound. Just tell me if this is now working. I'll put this up. If I fade it up.
Hell no!
Is that working?
Telling David Seymour in particular. Yep.
And that's only singular?
Yep.
I fixed it. This is one of the things I wanted to say, to show you actually from the TV3 article, because what they didn't say in the TVNZ article is after, I think, Seymour spoke, there was a haka that came on in front of him. They didn't show that on TVNZ.
Telling David Seymour in particular where to go.
So when it comes time to see where this is going to go into legislation, you and your shitty ass bill are going down the toilet.
His speech spurred a group of protesters to march onto the pai.
How scary is that?
Holding signs saying Toitu Te Tiriti, honour the treaty. When it came time.
So there you go. That was another little bit that I want to show you as well. I wonder as well, just on a logistical situation, what did the SIS do? Prime Minister's there, Deputy Prime Minister's there, protesters marching towards you carrying signs. I just wonder. I wonder if it would never go there. I wonder if there's an issue. I wonder if the SIS kind of step up or anything, just in case.
You'll be talking about parliamentary security rather than the SIS.
Sure, whatever it is.
Yep.
I don't. You know what? You know, I don't know army stuff. I don't know security stuff. It's your department.
SIS is our Security
Secret.
and Intelligence Service.
Gotcha.
Our spies, our James Bonds, Diplomatic Protection Squad is the other guys. DPS.
DPS.
Look,
Close.
if you
right?
look at stuff, if you've looked at what has happened historically at Waitangi, you've got Don Brash getting hit with a big chunk of mud. You know, they have a reasonably soft hand. I don't think you'd see like Secret Service like get down, Mr. President, sort of stuff from them. Yeah. I'm not the biggest fan of Hone Harawira. I think he's too much of a loose unit, but you can't argue with what he was saying there.
I want to play a couple of clips as well, super short clips, and then we've got a very important one to talk, because I remember I haven't heard it since this afternoon, but they're talking about Luxon's speech. We do want to play Spider, who spoke about that as well. But here's the clip I want to play first of all, because what it didn't show very well, I put these out on TikTok today, is the protest against David Seymour. It was just a lovely song.
It was also a partnership with community groups that had no ethnic background whatsoever. And we should do it in health. You know what? We should do it in every social service. We should have partnership. But the kind of partnership that we're going to have, is partnership for all. Tiro ranga tiratanga for all. And you can sing, and yet you're not going to beat an idea by singing any more than you're going to beat an idea with a gun. These debates about our identity...
And they just moved him on by doing that. The other one, of course, was Mr. Peters. And they did show a little bit of that in that clip, but we're going to see more of it because the second part of the clip is going to be the protest part. But have a bit of a listen to Peters with just 60 or 40 seconds of him. So they did really drown him out completely and utterly. And now that I've fixed up my little system there, I think we should go and watch the second part of that TVNZ clip, which was actually focusing on the protest. And they did part of their story with Mikey Sherman. They did, where is that still coming from? Oh, there we go, it's gone. I'm just going to... sorry, because I've still got something playing. There it is there. The second part of the clip on One News was talking specifically about the protest. It's really interesting because we only see very short clips, right? But this spends a good 3 minutes. We'll probably watch it for 2 of it, actually focusing on the protest that was there.
So as we've just seen, Mikey, robust kōrero, quite a spectacle today. Where does it leave the relationship between Māori and the government?
Well, look, it was predicted that today would be a moment in history, one for the Waitangi books, and it certainly was. This pōwhiri...
Cloaked in white.
Here we go. And as I said, the protest.
Well, the day began with a hikoi unlike any other. Hundreds of people cloaked in white crossed the treaty grounds ahead of the politicians' pōwhiri. And as our Māori Affairs correspondent, Tianiwa Hurihanganui, reports, it set the scene for a day of protest.
White wave sweeping across Waitangi. In a hikoi unlike anything ever seen on the treaty grounds.
Tamaiti.
This haunting display of unity and defiance, perhaps foreshadowing what was to come.
So ladies and gentlemen, we're off now.
In a day dominated by protest and the voices of the people.
Wa tai mai Aotearoa I te rā nei, ki te tuku, I te ihi, kia rongo ai tēnei kāwanatanga, ka aria rātou te mana ki tēnei whenua.
They did over there want to squash the treaty. Squash his own nose. Sick of
it. How Kiwi is that? Squash his own nose as a put down. Love it.
Do is make excuses, and now they want to turn our treaty off.
They came with banners and signs urging the government to honour te tiriti.
It's a bit mamae to see our own, sitting up there kind of feels like they're coming against us, coming for our ancestors, for our whenua, all of it. It's emotional, it's mamae.
I feel like there's this real groundswell of kaha and energy and mauri that's come from tangata whenua here that's unstoppable now.
Some overwhelmed by emotion.
I feel really heartbroken. He would never. You know, my children are Māori and I fear for their future, so I'm scared. I'm also scared.
She's been feeling that way for some time over some of the government's policies.
All the way on the trip up, I just felt my wairua just feels broken, you know? Yeah, so for the last few days, I've just felt really mamae.
The heckling and boos only grew louder as the porphyry rolled on.
Once you start using provocative language, and you start off with an uppercut, you're eventually going to get one back.
And that's exactly what they got.
So there was a focus on the protest show. It looked unreal. Like I said, never been anything like it on the Waitangi grounds. And I've seen a lot of, I don't know, the regular suspects talking about, like you were saying, disrespect and this and that thing. But you know, even Shane Jones said, whether it was the Kingitanga Hui or whether it was the Rasana, I can't remember, he basically said, we'll see you at Waitangi. This is where the argy-bargy happens. My words, not his. And it's what happened, but like never before.
I think this is, like, again, we were talking about European structures and a European-based system and that sort of thing. You know, where protocol, like, where do people get to have an outlet like this once a year where you can feed back to the government in real time how they're doing? Like, I think Waitangi is so important. You know, it's important for the document. It's important because this is something that is solely focused around the interface between Māori and our government. And I mean, we'll get into this when we touch on Luxon's speech and that sort of thing. But it's amazing the amount of experts that seem to pop up out of the ground whenever there's something like this about why, and suddenly they're experts and you know, protocol on the marae, and there's different protocol at different marae, and Waitangi has always been a robust discussion. So yeah, the politicians that they would be crazy to think that this year wasn't going to be rough and tumble.
Yeah.
You know, we've been talking about it for weeks, that this Waitangi was going to be something different. There was going to be very strong emotion and strong feedback. So these guys didn't just turn up and blew up in their face. They knew what they were walking into. And part of me wants to go, well, maybe they'll go back to Wellington or go back home and go, maybe we've got this wrong. You know, and maybe if the pressure keeps up, maybe they'll change their mind. But you know, it's an outlet.
I didn't want to give out bad information, so I just looked up something before I was going to say it. It feels a bit like there appears, and I'll say appears to be, because I did see it in a movie, but I have looked it up and it appears to be the case, that Japanese culture has this idea that if you get drunk with your workmates, you can tell off your boss. Seems to be something, and I've just looked it up just to make sure I wasn't completely bullshit. And there is a conversation here that says, depends on what you mean by tell off. There is indeed a certain rather generous degree of latitude given to people who's clearly drunk. The Japanese call it nomucation, as in the English communication, and the Japanese nomu, to drink. Nomucation is a very important role in Japanese society and is the main reason why Japanese colleagues drink together on a regular basis. So the reason I'm saying that, if that's fair and accurate, that the Japanese have this thing that you can get drunk and tell off your boss, that kind of feels like Waitangi Day and Māori to the government. You know, this is the day that we can, quote unquote, metaphorically, tell off the boss. You know, and that's what it's always seems to have been. It's a place where you come to get told truths, and because it feels to me that there is a lot more truths this year than perhaps in years gone by, the truths were a bit louder and a bit more angsty, if that's the right way to say it.
And look, what I say there is I hope that they reflect on this. Traditionally, the government hasn't. And I'm not talking just about national, like Labour didn't reconsider the seabed and foreshore bill either, despite being told very robustly at Waitangi that that year that it was a no-go.
Yeah.
I just hope that we're better. Like there's progress that's been made in my lifetime that is inspiring. I just wish that Molloy didn't have to fight tooth and nail and inch by bloody inch to get these things that are theirs by right, you know.
Yeah.
And I wish that people in New Zealand didn't see this as they're getting something that means it's being taken away from me.
Yeah, that's really
important. You know, Māori culture and the Māori way of seeing things is becoming more and more prevalent in our society. The use of more te reo, there's more consideration, there's more knowledge. We just need to keep this momentum, and I think that's what people are scared about. In both ways, people are scared that the momentum is too fast, and people are scared that the momentum will stop.
What I hear you saying, Chewy, and I might be being a bit oversimplified of this, is just because one person wins doesn't mean the other person necessarily has to lose. One person winning doesn't mean you're losing, right? It just can mean that one person, 3 people can win. It doesn't mean that another person has to lose necessarily.
And I'm like, one of the issues that I hold quite closely, right, is the effect that, say, farming has had on our rivers and that sort of thing. And that's all happened under the European structure, the government structure, regulation, and that sort of thing. And it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. There's a bunch of stuff that we've done the traditional way, with the traditional European way, and it hasn't worked. So where is the harm of trying something different? Where is the harm in, let's say, having more Māori input into how our rivers, which are incredibly important culturally to Māori, using Māori to keep our rivers cleaner? And this is an example of like, oh, you know, maybe this benefits everyone. Let's try it.
I'm with you. Now, we do have to get to our next clip because we are amping to get there. The amazing, and you've seen her in the chat tonight, Spiderhoof. I was having a chat with Spiderhoof this afternoon about using this, and I think the word that Spiderhoof used, hang on, I don't want to miss, I'm sure Spiderhoof won't mind if I misquote her slightly, but she identified herself as a nerd and said that these kinds of things is what she sees. Yeah, she's a bit of a nerd. Yeah, anyway. So this is something that's, and look, again, Spiderhoof, you know, we've said this about our show, humbly, but, you know, putting it out there. Sometimes we're catching things like, for example, and I tweeted it out today and I tagged in Tova O'Brien and John Campbell and Jack Tame and One News. Can someone please ask the Prime Minister about about could it be a conscience vote? Because even today he said, you know, he used the word what's the word he's using for about the referendum? We have no intention. He's still using that word. It sounds quite positive. It sounds like they're not going to go any further, but he's still not going. Like, what I need him to say is we carte blanche will not be supporting it beyond the first reading. That's what I need to hear him say, right? And I said, please ask. So I think we have got things that other people haven't. And here's one that this should lead every news bulletin first thing in the morning. And I haven't seen it anywhere else. So Spiderhoof has caught up on this and no one else has. And we're going to play it for you now. When you copy last year's school assignment and no one notices, if you are listening to the audio podcast, you're going to hear Mr. Luxon say his speech from 2023 at Waitangi and then 2024 at Waitangi, right? So you'll hear him saying very similar things. I'll say it again. When you copy last year's school assignment and hope no one notices.
184 years ago, today, and 7 decades after Cook sailed south from Tahiti, Crown representatives and Māori came together to sign the Treaty of Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi. 183 years ago, Cook sailed south and 7 decades after Cook sailed south from Tahiti, Crown and Māori came here to sign the Treaty of Waitangi. And we know that they likely had different understandings of what they were doing. And we know that in the years that followed, the promise and the obligations of the treaty were not upheld by the Crown. And we know that they likely had different understandings of what they were doing.
Jesus.
And we know that in the years that followed, promise and the obligation.
I tell you what, this is embarrassing for him, but honestly, this is more embarrassing for the media. Why was this not the lead story on all the news? We know they're watching social media. We might get to that part of the story next, actually. We know they're keeping an eye on social media, the mainstream media. No one's done this except Spiderhoof.
While the journey continues, I think all New Zealanders can take some pride, because it has required a generosity of spirit from both iwi and Crown to restore mana. The treaty settlement process is something that I think all New Zealanders can be immensely proud of, because it's required a generosity of spirit from both iwi and the Crown.
Like it's like, honestly, what the fuck? Like, did you see my actual comments come up on there when where was my comment? My comment was just, what the fuck? Oh, it's gone, it's disappeared now. Because it's just, yeah, like I said, it's embarrassing to old Luxon, but I actually feel like it's more embarrassing that the media didn't feature it at all. So he pays so little credence. Luxon gives his speech to Waitangi on our public holiday. He values it so little, he's just using last year's speech. He didn't even go out of his fucking way, right, to think, how has it changed in 12 months? What's the relationship between the Crown and Māori like today? He wouldn't even spend 2 minutes to go, yeah, maybe we should whip out a new one. No, he cares that little about the relationship between the Crown and Māori. He just pulls out the one from last year and he does the speech. It is disgusting. It is really, really revolting. It's really dismissive. It's really disrespectful. And I can't believe that I can believe that Spiderhoof got it. Spiderhoof's amazing, but I can't believe that Spiderhoof's the only person that got it, and none of the mainstream media picked up on it. They were all fucking there last year, and they heard him talk, and they were there this year, and they didn't go, Chewy, this sounds a bit familiar.
The only explanation I have is that nobody would think someone would do something that stupid. But I think Nikki here in the chat has nailed it. Same words, same outfit. So maybe he did write another speech, but he left it at home and the cue cards were still in his suit from last year. So he's like, oh fuck, I'll just do this. No, I think you're right. We were talking just before about disrespect, right? This is disrespect.
Yeah.
This is disrespect. To know that the government that you are supposedly leading, that is absolutely getting lashed over the fact that so much of your first 100 days negatively affects Māori. And you're going into a Waitangi Day where everybody is going, this is a big moment. This is a big moment for race relations in this country. On something that's already an important day, and you whiff the speech like that.
Yeah.
Like you sit there literally for hours and watch speaker after speaker after speaker get up and give impassioned speeches about the past and the future and their hopes for people. Or even Winston actually just got up and fired back, probably mostly off the cuff, to be honest. And then Luxon gets up there, reads a speech that he's read before, makes absolutely no reference to anything that has been said that day. He is the, as I said at the start, he's the absence of a leader. He's an empty suit. There is nothing inspiring there. Like, you can't even say he has the bravery to get up there and say something wrong. He gets up there and says something inconsequential. I saw Madeline over at the Spin-Off did an excellent article that I recommend everybody go and have a look. Christopher Luxon's Waitangi speech was so boring it's insulting. And she mentions the fact that it's almost word for word. The same as last year. And people's reaction and people grumbling, talking, and then leaving.
Well, can I just say this
because
as well?
There's nothing there.
Spin-off, whilst they are much more mainstream, still not what you call a heritage brand. So great on the spin-off. Good on you guys for seeing it. I wonder if that article came out before or after Spiderhoof's video. But, you know. Because the other thing I was going to say is, this is a bit of a tandem maybe, but a tangent, I should say, not a tandem. We don't have a bicycle with two seats. Is that the mainstream media do pay attention to what's happening on social media. We had an example of this just last week, where this story came out on Saturday morning at about 11 a.m. Luxon's sister-in-law works for a major tobacco company. And then on Thursday night on BHN, Christopher Mark Luxon's sister-in-law works in the tobacco industry. Now, that wasn't the only place it was. We didn't necessarily break this news because, Chewy, you said that you saw it all
literally
over
something
Blue
I read
Sky.
on Blue Sky just before we went to
So
air.
the mainstream media is watching social media to get news bits. They will probably come out tomorrow, I suspect, about his speech. And it's probably because of places like the Spin-Off and like Spiderhoof that's actually got it. You should send them a bill. So they watch, so they can't miss this. They just can't. Little addendum to this as well, actually, Chewy. You may not know this in its entirety yet. Because of this, right? I did a little bit of a jape, a little bit of a jest, where I said one news follows where BHN goes. We talk about it Thursday. Their breaking news story. Maybe they've been watching. So that was a bit of a jest, bit of a jape, bit of a joke, and some particular disgusting right-wing piles of pancake batter came out. Fat Bitterman, this is his name for me now. You got under someone's nose when they try and make up a nickname for you. And it's just thing of him calling someone fat. Good one. So Fat Bitterman proudly claims to have sparked the legacy media doxing of a private citizen for political gain.
What the fuck?
He's a special kind of moron. So Sean Plunkett stuck his 25,000 Twitter follows on me by saying that I had doxed the person. So I thought, well, maybe we should check out what we actually said. So this is what we said on the night. To see, this is what Luxon and a lot of other people consider to be doxing. Have a listen to this. This is word for word, and it's scripted as well.
Someone in the chat's just reminded me of something I read today. Mark Luxon's sister-in-law works in the tobacco industry. So, it's who works for a tobacco company, for fuck's sake?
And that's it.
That's
it. That's what we said. That's what we said on Thursday night. And Karen decided that was doxing a private citizen's. Actually, Karen never saw it. Karen saw the screen grab that I put. There's no chance that Karen did see it because I then posted this clip onto his timeline. But Karen never saw it. So that's got me a whole bunch of people in my DMs and stuff talking about putting out my stuff, because if I'm going to dox a person for political gain, they're going to dox me. And that's what it is. That's what's come out. That's what the people have been seeing. And let me just say this, make this really clear about doxing. I actually disagree when I see on TikTok and stuff, even from the left, when people go, can someone find out who this is for me? And then they broadcast those details. That is doxing, even if it's the left doing it. Like those guys from Julian Bachelor, I never broadcast who they were. I know the people that were involved with the assaulters. I found out who they were. You can find out who they are, but broadcasting it publicly, that is actually what doxing is, and I don't support that. So I'm literally a non-doxer. Here's the question. His sister-in-law, what's her name? Don't know. How do you contact her? Don't know. If there was 10 women in a lineup, could you pick her out? No. Where does she live? Don't know. What's her phone number? Don't know. It's not doxing. Got no idea. It's not doxing. Anyway.
Yeah. So, look, Sean Plunkett is old as fuck. He doesn't know what doxing is. It's a new word that gets thrown around by his absolute poisonous army of minions, and he thinks he knows what it means. Mentioning someone is not doxing. Putting out information about where they live, how to contact them, that sort of thing, where their workplace is.
Yeah.
That's doxing. Mentioning that someone's sister-in-law works for British American Tobacco when that person has it on their LinkedIn profile is not doxing. Fuck's sake, Sean, you used to be a journalist. Be better.
That's what I thought as well, actually. I thought journalistic work. The thing is, he also put that up about TVNZ and about News Hub, putting on the story, and there was a lot of pushback against him for not knowing what doxing is. But the thing is,
we don't have a lot of time to cover off the things that Sean has
Yeah.
got wrong, even just in the last couple of years.
A lot of people started pointing out in the Nai Mahutas family members, all this kind of stuff. He was very keen for everyone to know all the details about who those people were and what they were doing. And of course, his defense of that was, yeah, but that's public money. So if it's public money, you can dox. That's what he's saying right now. If it's public money, you can dox.
Well, that's the thing. Like, the man was so concerned about various opportunities for corruption with the last government, and yet he can't see the fact that close familial links with the tobacco industry, and we're not just talking about Christopher Luxon's sister-in-law, we're talking about other people in the National Party and the ACT Party in New Zealand First. They all have close links with the tobacco companies, and they all seem to be going, maybe we should get rid of excise tax on cigarettes. Maybe we should roll back some of the protections that we were going to do. Maybe we should do this involving cigarettes. There's a lot of policy around cigarettes. Fucking weirdly, because who gives a shit about tobacco anymore?
Yeah, but but the other thing is, when that chat came up in our chat, we put it up on screen. What was our response to it? Our response was literally, Our response wasn't, oh, there's a smoking gun. Oh, Luxon. Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, let's do. It's like other people have made insinuations as to what that means. No, we never did. It was like, okay, that's pretty weird. And you were like, who the fuck works for tobacco? We never once even said that, oh, there's a conflict. But people are now coming at us going, so you don't, so you're calling this a conflict. No, we were like, literally, if you watch the script, I went, that was the sum total of my comment on in fact, you know what, this has been a Streisand what do you call it? It's not Streisand moment where you try to ignore something. Streisand effect, because now so much more people know about it because of people like Karen tweeting it out than knew about it before, and so there is a bit of Streisand effect going on here. Anyway,
hey, look, here's another word for you to learn, Sean, because I know you're watching. PSYOP. Sean, you are BHN's best PSYOP. Keep it up, buddy.
Hey, we're at what are we at? Oh, we're about. We could do this last story too, because I really only wanted to do this story for you.
Which one is it?
This one.
Ah, my little mate.
Little's the right word. Did you want to do something else first? Have you got something loaded up?
I did, just before we leave Luxon high and dry. I just want to talk about one other thing that, again, I think just really hammers home the point that for as much as Chris Luxon says that he values Māori and he wants the best for Māori and all of this sort of thing, they're empty words, they're not actions. Okay, and we've had people talk about protocol and Mariah and that sort of thing. So on Blue Sky today, I saw this. Christopher Luxon was handed a gift, and the first thing he did was put it on the ground beside him. So here we go. 4 images. He is being gifted what looks to be a folded up blanket or sail or flag. I can't tell exactly what it is.
Is that hang on. Is there a blanket? Is there a little bit of, is that pointed or not?
Well, that was.
I mean, I'd love to receive. I would love to receive a woven blanket from Māori, but because he's giving it to the Crown, is there any kind of? Was there a musket as well? Blanket and a musket given to him?
So they're being given. He's received the gift. Before he sits down, he puts it down on the ground next to his feet, next to his chair, and then someone comes from behind him to pick it up immediately and tuck it under his shoulder. And I'm sure their words of like, don't put the fucking gift on the fucking ground. And I think that's one of those things that's right up there as far as how you interact with Māori. Don't put gifts on the ground. Don't like stand or sit on tables. You know, this is basic etiquette. And he didn't know it. And he pretends that he values what Māori value. It's not true. It's just filling in the gaps of the painting that we all know is there, that he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. 400 live watching right now, just between me and you. Look at the corner. 400 live. Well done, team. I think that's the first 400.
Comment, subscribe, smash that bell.
Kooky Nick, another $2 hit that like. There you go. 406. But look at that. We're jumping up over 400. This might be our biggest night ever. So our biggest night ever, let's talk about the smallest human being in the history of the world, who looks to me to be attempting to try to become one of the top twins. Is that the same to you? Is he trying out to be one of the top twins?
I don't know if this is horrible to say or not, but Leo Molloy looks like a tiny lesbian.
Yeah, he's trying out to be one of the top twins, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, people were having a crack at me over the weekend for blocking them. I was just blocking dicks, and Leo Molloy's blocked me, so I don't know too much about what's going on in his life. But here's something interesting today. The Auckland businessman facing a charge of assaulting police has this morning outed himself. It's Viaduct restaurateur and one-time City mayoral candidate Leo Molloy. The owner of HQ Bar on Auckland's Viaduct Basin instructed his lawyer, Quinton Duff, that he no longer wants or needs name suppression. Needs name suppression is interesting. Over an alleged incident in July 2023. I'm just pausing it here because if you don't know, Leo Molloy is a long, loud, ardent opposer of name suppression. He has, I think this is the case. You could look this up, Joe. I'm pretty sure it is the case. He has faced charges for breaching name suppression orders before, yes. And he often talks about these people should not be getting name suppression. Now, some of the people he's talking about are like done horrific things, and I might actually agree with him. But whether I do or don't, this is a man who does not believe in name suppression. Right? We've got to make that very, very, very clear. So, July 2023, where police claims the 1.65 metre, I didn't know they stack shit that high, ex-jockey assaulted a 1.95 metre, that's 6'5", team policing cop and obstructed a female officer. On Monday morning, Molloy again appeared in the Auckland District Court before Judge Catherine Maxwell, where Duff said the name suppression application had been abandoned. He earlier pleaded not guilty to the charges of assaulting police officer and obstructing another officer. Judge Maxwell remanded Molloy at large until his next court date on April 3 in the same court. The complainant in the alleged assault, carrying a maximum penalty of 6 months in prison or a $4,000 fine, is a male constable. Right, here's the important bit, right? Molloy told the Herald he only sought suppression on those charges at the time because of potential issues with his liquor license application with the Auckland Liquor Licensing Authority. My legal advice was it would not be in my best interest to have my name in the media, as that could have opened the floodgates to a number of objections over the variance to the liquor license HQ had applied for. So very clearly, his legal advice said it would not be in his best interest to have his name in the media. To which I've responded, no shit, Sherlock. Do you think anyone else might also have used it that you outed or wanted to out based on their legal advice? In other words, when it's about him, there's a reason for name suppression. But when it's about these other people, you should not get it. It's a clear-cut case of one rule for me and not for thee, for the world's smallest, fully grown adult hypocrite. Chewy.
Let's talk about his objection to name suppression, shall we? Yes, name suppression is fucking annoying. But it exists for a very clear reason. And what he was convicted of was breaching the name suppression around the murder of Grace Mullane up in Auckland. Yep. And he was incensed. He personally didn't think it was fair. So he put the murderer's name out there, which jeopardizes one of the pillars of just justice, right? Is the right to a fair trial.
Yeah.
Now, there is no way that this guy was going to get away with that court case. There was so much evidence. But he put that at risk. He put a fair jury at risk because he thought that it wasn't fair. This man has no grounding in the law. He's an opinionated little bar owner. And yeah, as we're quite rightly mocking, as soon as his opportunity to keep his name out so it didn't affect his business, and he couches the fact of worrying about his 40 staff or whatever, pull the other one. Yeah, he'll use it. I give him credit for withdrawing it, but it's a partial credit.
Well, let's just wait, because maybe it would have been cancelled at the next appeal anyway. We don't know that.
Exactly.
We don't know that, but it's still this idea is that when it's him, there is a good reason to have temporary name suppression, right? But what he's saying for everybody else is there's no reason you should get name suppression. But for him, his legal advice was let's keep your name out of the news for now. But for everybody else who's getting that legal advice, not about you. You can't have it. He's just ridiculous.
He's just the owner. Like it should, like if he was worried about it, just put someone else in charge of the bar. Like you got a bar manager. It's their licenses. But I think if you run around breaching suppression orders and get convicted of it, and then follow it up by assaulting a police officer,
Allegedly.
then you're not a fit and proper person to hold
Allegedly.
a manager's license.
Because we try and do stay by rules. Allegedly assaulted a police officer. If that's what happened, you said. So that's great. If. We don't know. If.
Yep.
Before the courts.
And that's the thing. You could just go, oh, okay, fair enough. I don't believe in name suppression, so I am now not a director of HQ. But he doesn't want it because he bases his personality around that bar. You lived in Auckland. Have you ever been to HQ, Pat?
Don't think so. I spent a bit of time down the viaduct. The viaduct kind of popped up a little bit, not quite outside my university days, but I was more sort of clubbing in Queen Street and in Manukau. I used to go clubbing at a place in Manukau called the Colosseum, which then turned into a massive Christian church afterwards. So people used to go there to get a different kind of liquor.
I do like the fact that some place called the Colosseum turned into a place for Christians.
Yeah, the Lions were gone though. Well gone. Yeah. So anyway, look, I just, that's one of those little stories, you know. I mean, this is also the kind of thing that, and like, look, everyone can be hypocritical. Everyone's hypocritical from time to time. We will have been from time to time as well. But as much as I can try for me and for us and for the show, as what shall I say it out loud? We play each ball in its merits. You know, we walk and chew gum at the same time, which is why I'm saying I'm actually really against doxing. And I think that the left have a really, 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 really bad habit of being anti-doxing when it's let's say it's an LGBT activist sort of thing. But then when it's someone at a Julian Bachelor meeting who's offended or who's allegedly offended, then they go searching for them and they broadcast their information. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. And that's why I've never been involved with that and don't want to do it. So you got to be consistent. And if you're not consistent, you end up just looking foolish. I remember there used to be, it might still be around, there used to be a group called the Sensible Sentencing Trust. They were really a psyop for the right. And they showed their true colours when all of a sudden there was a young brown boy who was assaulted. No, who was assaulted, sorry. There was a young brown boy who was assaulted by a white property owner because he allegedly had sprayed his fence, and the property owner came out and actually beat him quite badly. And the Sensible Sentencing Trust, which was about the victims, were all of a sudden supporting the property owner, not the victim, who was because he allegedly sprayed a wall in an alleyway beside the person's house, so he was the offender, not because the owner of the property then put him in hospital. There might have even been a stabbing involved with that. There might have been. I could be wrong with that, but it was a pretty serious assault. So they lost any credibility they could have possibly had, because all of a sudden, when the young brown boy needed someone to defend them, the victim, they went with the offender. Leo Molloy, he's just now lost any credibility of any kind of argument around name suppression because he's applied for it himself. You know, you just if you're not consistent, you lose any credibility for being able to make that or other arguments because you become less believable. So we will always at least try and endeavour to be consistent. Sorry, Drew.
Here's my gold standard, right? When you're talking about name suppression, right? Friend of the show, Dudley from Meow, well, formerly of Meow down here. He was involved. Like there was so much chatter for ages because the court case kept on getting put off. But a prominent Auckland patron of the arts, I guess,
was a knight, wasn't it?
And that was all the information that was out there. That a prominent Auckland personality, a patron of the arts, was up against some quite serious sexual assault charges. And it was one of those things that in that scene, in that art scene in Auckland, it was kind of like an open secret, but nobody talked about it. And one of the people that we knew that's been on the show with us before, we never even knew that he was caught up with that, and he had to just watch those news stories roll in. Court case went ahead, and then suddenly Dudley was able to talk about it. Now, if Dudley can hold his tongue about the horrible situation that he was in, then Leo Molloy can hold his tongue about something that he's not even fucking involved in.
Yeah, fair. Good point. Good point. And on that good point, I think it's time for us to go. Very sorry to be able to be so flaky on this, Tefano. Not sure if we'll be here tomorrow night or not. Follow us on Twitter. If you're not following us already right now, why don't you hit the subscribe button on YouTube and hit the notification bell. And then if we are here tomorrow, then you'll know because you'll be notified about it. And while you're there, throw us a like. Is that what we say? Yep. I think that's what we say.
Yeah. Like, comment, and subscribe and share. Yeah, like, I don't know. It depends what's in the news cycle tomorrow. We might just want to take a knee for the holiday. But, yeah, you've got our Facebook page. You've got Pat's Twitter. You've got me on Blue Sky and Mastodon and our YouTube page. So heaps of notice to see if we're doing something.
Yep, Facebook as well. Facebook.com/Big Hairy News, I think it is. We're all over the place. Me and Chewie will chat about it afterwards and we'll figure it out. And you'll know after we know. Enjoy your show. Thanks for supporting Māori from Weka Digital Media. I kind of want to say yes, we do support Māori, but I think what we do is support people. And we support people in need. And we support people who need our support. And at the moment, especially at the moment with this government, Māori are those people. I'm not trying to say we wouldn't support them otherwise, but it's obvious that there is a need to support this group of people who are Māori at the moment, which is, I think, why we're on board. VJ Rex, lot of love, guys. Thanks, VJ.
Just one lot.
Just one lot.
Not
lot
lots,
of love.
just one.
Lot of love.
One lot. One lot of love.
Okay, I'm done. Anything you want to finish with, Chewie, or are we done?
I've seen this mentioned a couple of times in the chat. V-Bunch here says Jack Tame is doing Q&A show tomorrow morning on TVNZ. So I would say that might be some content that we might want to talk about.
All right.
Just maybe.
This sounds like a bit of a cliffhanger. Ooh, we'll be here tomorrow night. Ooh.
Watch this space.
Watch this space 4 times. All right, guys. If you're heading towards Waitangi, if you're doing something special for tomorrow, I used to have a really big push for celebrating Waitangi Day. I used to do a lot. I used to do it. There was a Facebook page for a while that I used to run that I started called Waitangi Day Barbecue or something. Probably still up actually. And I used to really encourage people to celebrate Waitangi Day. I don't know if I still own it or not. Waitangi Day BBQ, because I used to get so sick and tired of people going on and on, especially when I was on ZB about, it's just not, well, we should call it New Zealand Day. We should do.
It should be called New Zealand Day. Can you imagine anything more fucking white bread, boring, no fucking anything? Yuck.
I was always of the opinion, this is our national holiday. If you're getting frustrated over a bunch of letters that are put together instead of other letters that it should be, then that's on you. But we should all make an effort to celebrate our national day. We don't have another one, no matter what, tomorrow in whatever way. And so I always put out there, have a Waitangi Day barbecue tomorrow. So I hope you celebrate it somehow. And if you're in Dunedin, there's something happening down at the Octagon at midday, isn't there, Chewie? Is there a march or a protest?
Yep, there is a march from, hilariously, the statue of Queen Victoria to the Octagon. And I love that. I recently found out, sorry, tangent, that Queen Victoria was only 5 foot tall.
Little, all right.
Which for some reason I find hysterical.
That wouldn't have been unusual though in that time, would it?
No, it probably wasn't. But the idea of a tiny wee woman ruling like half the planet, the sun never sets on the British Empire, is just, that's amazing.
All right. Peace. Have a good day tomorrow, guys. Celebrate it somehow. Follow us on all the follows. And we may see you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. But until then, ka kite anō. See ya. Thanks for joining us. Hooroo. Bye-bye.
Cheers, fam.